Okay, think of this as a supplemental video. There were a couple of things I left out I meant to talk about, so I'm gonna try to make this very quick. And real quick, right up at first, what I want to talk about is some of you might be experimenting with this and like, why doesn't my display settings change? I don't know. Every time I try, I get it to work eventually, and then I forget. Whether it's Debian or now Fedora and VirtualBox, it's always some kind of combination between the two. So you might notice if you change your display and then you go to a different terminal, or if you log out, log back in, it's as if you had never changed it, so it doesn't stick. One tip I saw was to change this graphics controller to VBox VGA. VirtualBox gets mad if you do it, but go ahead and do it. And so far I haven't any problems, and it sticks now. Everything works. So I've set this. This is full screen, by the way, behind, and whatever I've got the resolution set to, it's working. So great. I'm not going to complain until it messes up, until something crashes or something, which has not happened. Yeah, 1920 by 1080. That's what I've got right now. Okay, so the other things, just, and this is kind of, think of this as a little bit of a review too. You know, repetition helps. So I'm going to go to a terminal so you can see how, now that I pinned it there, I made it a favorite. I don't have to search for it anymore. There should be a way to do it, and the right click here too. Typically that's how you would do it to new terminal, but there's a way to set that up. I don't know what it is yet. So some of the commands I left out were manual. This is important. It's dubious importance. You'll probably need to learn about it quite a bit in this class, at least to some extent. But let me show you. So like any of the commands you have, the things you can do in Linux should have a manual page. That's accessed by typing man, M-A-N. And what it will do is it'll tell you, short description of the command, and then it will give you like all the what your book calls options. Command line switches is also a common name for these. So there's the POSIX version, which is 2 dashes and all spelled out words. And then there's the more common kind you'll see, which is just 1 dash and a letter, or 2 maybe. Case matters. This is in your material, but I'm going to repeat it here. For instance, I'll show you an example where case matters in a minute, but you'll notice some of these switches are lowercase b, uppercase b. That's 2 different things depending on what you type. So you can see there are a lot of things that, this is why man pages are of dubious value when you're starting out. Though I will tell you this, the more you do, especially in programming, the more programming you do and the more Unix and Linux stuff you do, the more valuable these become, because you do start to understand them. If you need to know a very specific way to do something, the man page probably has the information in a very abbreviated form for you to do it. But that very abbreviated form is kind of why they're not always useful in the beginning, because it's like, oh, okay, I see a bunch of gibberish. What does all this mean? So I type Q to get out of man, the manual, the Linux manual. This is a replication of a physical book, if I remember correctly. Back in the day, there would be a big manual you could look through, right? But this was the onboard on the computer version. If you want to know more about the manual, you can type man, and it tells you all about how to use the manual. There was a version that it's listed in your reading called Info, and I remember when this came out. I think maybe I don't remember when, but I remember learning about it. Let's put it that way. And it is a little bit more useful. I think it's I'm not sure about these pages here, but I remember having the feeling that it was more understandable. But in any case, your mileage may vary on that, so check it out. Oh, let me pause and make sure I get the other things I wanted to talk about. Now I remember. Okay, I don't actually use this command a whole lot. Every now and then, though, it comes in useful. So date tells you the date. And then there's cal. It's calendar. It'll give you the month you're in. If you want to know the calendar for the whole year, you type the year as an argument. So this is the difference between argument and like options. An argument, your book talks about argument. How does it phrase it? Let me pull it over here real quick. I don't want to make this a long lecture, so I'll try to do this quickly. But argument, specify command specific working parameter. So the idea here, the difference between parameter and argument, parameters are all the things you can type. Parameters represent the domain of possible arguments. The argument is the specific thing that you type to go into that parameter. So for the for say cat, right? There's several possible arguments you can have for that. So there's parameters for what you can type after cat, which would be file names. So it could be like any file name. That parameter is going to be a file name. The specific file name you type is the argument. So just an example here. Let's see what we got in this directory. A.out. That's a binary file, so we don't want a cat. But we've got my awesomeprogram.c, which is just ASCII text. So if I type cat, the argument is my awesomeprogram.c. That argument fits the parameters that this command allows to be typed into it, as you know, as the argument you send to it. So date with the argument of the year that you want to see. Numpad, by the way, is not turned on by default, apparently. Let me do it. If you turn it on, it works. Okay, there we go. Not date. Cal 2020. I'm just going to leave that mistake in. Shows you the calendar for the whole year. One interesting thing, this is trivia, and you can like probably just turn off right now because I'm not really going to talk about more. Well, there's one other thing I'll show. This example from the book using the backticks. Let me show that real quick, and then I'll show you my trivia. So backtick is the unshifted tilde in the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard. If you type a command that can be interpreted by the shell here, it will actually, you might be able to see that, it will actually, echo means print out to the screen what I type here after echo. If you do backticks, what it will do is execute the date command, return that text, and then echo will print it to the screen. So I can say echo something like today's date is, just to show you without the argument. Well, you gotta close it, I guess. Oh, I know what's going on. Single quote. That's a big mistake. Echo the date today is. There's lots of rules about how you open and close quotes. So without any quotes, it'll just print what you type. And then if you want to make sure, you know, you have to put you have to close any single quotes you open. Anyway, you see it says the date today is : If I wanted to actually put the actual date after that, then I would do backtick the command date, which you can just type at the shell prompt, right? And then the closing backtick for that. And it will run that date command, return the output, and append it to the end of my little message I made. So the date today is actual date. Notice it's Eastern Daylight Time. You guys stop typing EST in the summer. That's Eastern Standard Time, which is an hour behind. It's a pet peeve. One solution, just type ET for Eastern Time. Then people they know whether it's daylight savings time or not. Anyway, it's a big pet peeve of mine. This gets it right. It's EDT right now. The trivia I wanted to show you, I'm going to type for the calendar. This might take a second to find. Actually, I lost it, so I'm going to pause. Okay, back from pause. So this is a computer. It's not a difficult task for it to do this. I want the calendar for some particular year, right? What about 1752? Cal space with the argument 1752. That argument is the possible domain of parameter for, you know, the year parameter that you would put here. When I hit enter, it spits out. Let me make sure this. Got to make sure the screen's selected. If it spits out the calendar for that year, 1752 AD or CE if you prefer. I want you to look at September. What's odd about September? So I'll put my mouse over here. Something weird's going on there, right? If I had like a candy bar in class, I don't ever do that. I think it's silly, but if maybe I would do it for this one. I'd throw a candy bar for to the person who would tell me why this is weird. I will say that it's correct. This calendar's not messed up, but I'll leave that for you. It's easy to, you know, if you just Google type 1752 in your address bar, or if you got Google as your default search, and it'll probably tell you right away. But I think it's a neat thing. I actually checked when I learned about this. I checked it in Unix like that day. I was like in class, so lab or whatever, the Solaris box. I typed the date for that year. I'm like, oh, it's got it. Anyway, That's it. That was almost 10 minutes, so I apologize for making this very short video. Not as short as I meant to. But that should be the end of the videos for this week, unless somebody asks questions I want to answer in a video. You can always do that, by the way. Probably should not tuck this at the end of this 10-minute video. But if you ever have like good, questions I think the whole class needs a little mini lecture on, I'll make a video on it. That's kind of how I handled things since the pandemic started. Talk to you soon.